We now know that the United States is under fire as this war widens. Many people say that the United States needs to step away from Israel. We cannot back them. However, President Biden is supporting Israel. He also wants to support the people of Gaza by sending humanitarian aid. I'll get to more on that in just a moment, but this is breaking news. According to the latest reports, Hamas leaders admit they have no interest in governing Gaza. What they want is a permanent war with Israel. That is it. Just a permanent war. Now I want to read you a few things really quick. It says right here, we succeeded in putting the Palestinian issue back on the table, and now no one in the region is experiencing calm. Okay, it's a pretty bold statement. Look at this one. It says, I hope that the state of war with Israel will become permanent on all the borders and that the Arab world will stand with us. This is from a Hamas media advisor. He added that its goal is not to run Gaza and to bring it water and electricity and such. No, that's not their goal. It says Hamas, the Qassam, and the resistance woke the world up from its deep sleep and showed that this issue must remain on the table. This battle was not because we wanted fuel and laborers. It did not seek to improve the situation in Gaza. This battle is to completely overthrow the situation. That's it. Okay? It's a very simple statement, very clear. That Hamas doesn't want to govern Gaza. But they definitely don't want Israel in there. And so that's starting to turn into a bigger issue. Is that they don't care. They're just trying to overthrow the situation. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because the United States is being pulled into this. The United States is being hit with missiles and drones, okay, over in Syria and Iran, okay, or Iraq. And now Iran, these are Iranian-backed groups that are trying to attack us. Well, what we are now hearing is that what they're trying to do is not try to really injure the American troops. That's not the goal. The goal is to keep us occupied, keep us busy elsewhere, so that we are not here in Israel. Now, I'm going to show you this. It says U.S. forces under fire in Middle East as America slides towards the brink. The brink of what? Well, that's what I want to read you, because look at this. This is very interesting. I talked about this the other day. I talked about how there's groups that are targeting U.S. troops over in Syria and Iraq. Well, look at this, because this is how close the United States was to potentially jumping into another war. It says, the drone, which was launched at the Erbil Air Base by an Iranian-backed militia before sunrise on October 26th, it penetrated U.S. air defenses and crashed into the second floor of the barracks housing American troops at about 5 a.m. This was according to 2 U.S. officials familiar with the matter. It goes on to say, but the device, laden with explosives, failed to detonate, and in the end, only one service member suffered a concussion from the impact. It said the U.S. had got lucky, they added, as the drone could have caused carnage had it exploded. This is what we're talking about. The United States has been under fire for about a little over 3 weeks. Okay, it's been about 23 days. In those 23 days, the U.S. troops and bases have been attacked more than 40 times. However, this is one time where the drone that had explosives on it, it didn't detonate. It didn't really hurt anybody other than a concussion. What if those explosives would have detonated? That would have changed everything. And this is why some are saying that the United States is this close from jumping into a war. Because we are being threatened. We are being pushed to the brink. And this is why this is breaking news. Because now, what we are hearing is that the United States is actually worried, and many White House officials are extremely worried that the only move they're going to be able to make is to go and retaliate and attack. So we're going to see. There's other news. It says the Iran-backed groups threaten to expand Gaza war as they step up attacks on Israel and the U.S. Before, it was only Israel. We are going to attack Israel. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But according to Hezbollah's second in command, they're warning that the conflicts are about to expand. Now, I want to read you this. It says Hezbollah participates for the sake of lowering the pressure on Gaza. He framed Israel as the aggressor, saying that these growing attacks were a clear message that if you expand, there will be serious consequences. It says taken together, Hezbollah's heightened rhetoric and the widening strikes by a group of Iran-backed proxies suggest that this axis of resistance is acting in harmony to ramp up pressure on the U.S. and Israel to check the latter's escalating assault on the Gaza Strip. It says those in the axis of resistance have seen that the mastermind is America. Key word. Mastermind is America, Qassam said. So they strike America under the principle of sending a message to stop, just as Israel should stop. He added, how does America and the rest of the world have the right to stand on the side of Israel that kills civilians and children and destroys homes, while we don't have the right to support our people and our loved ones in Palestine and the region? This is actually what many people have brought up as well. There was a protest by students in London. They just walked out of their school. We've seen protests in Washington, D.C. We've seen protests in New York. We've seen protests in New Orleans, Chicago, Detroit, Seattle. We've seen protests all over the place. Now, what many people are asking is, how does the United States, again, how can we stand with Israel when they are going to, they're killing children, families, civilians? We had a reporter ask this just the other day at the White House. And he asked, what is the difference between really with Israel pretty much bombing and killing children and families and destroying homes in Gaza? What's the difference between that and what Russia did to Ukraine? That's what people are asking. And the White House official pretty much said, well, this is not the time to be asking that question. So what's interesting is we're now asking the questions, but the answers we're getting don't all add up. Here's one thing I can tell you, that this war between Israel and Hamas could soon be over, because it says the Israeli army claims Hamas has lost control of the northern Gaza Strip. Now, I want to read you a little bit of the background here. It says on the 31st of October, the IDF, this is the Israeli Defense Forces, reported that they had started fighting with Hamas in the underground tunnels of the Gaza Strip. On November 2nd, the IDF said their ground forces and tanks had clashed with Hamas terrorist cells in the northern Gaza Strip at night, resulting in dozens of militants being killed. Reports also indicated that the IDF's engineering unit had launched a large-scale operation to destroy Hamas tunnels in the Gaza Strip, which the IDF has taken over. Over 100 tunnels have been ruined so far. It says later, the IDF stated that they were already operating inside Gaza City and surrounding it from several sides. Okay. Well, what does this mean for the Palestinian people? What does it mean for civilians? Well, what it means right now is that many people are being let out. There are rolling pauses. Well, this is what President Biden asked for. President Biden was reportedly urging Netanyahu to agree to a 3-day pause for hostages to be released. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit of this, but just understand what President Biden asked for what Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged Israel to do. They haven't agreed to it. Let's read this together. It says, in a Monday phone call, President Joe Biden suggested to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he agrees to a 3-day pause in the war in order to work on freeing some of the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. 2 U.S. and Israeli officials told Axios. The U.S. official told the outlet that the U.S., Israel, and Qatar have been working on a deal in which Hamas would release 10 to 15 hostages in return for the pause. But the 2 officials mentioned that Netanyahu doesn't believe Hamas would be trustworthy in a hostage deal and humanitarian pause, with the Israeli source citing an incident in which Hamas militants killed several Israeli soldiers in a pause during the 2014 war. This was about 9 years ago. In an interview with ABC News' David Meir, Netanyahu seemed to consider a shorter break of an hour here and an hour there. As of Tuesday, Hamas had released 2 elderly Israeli women and an American mother and daughter. Okay? So they've already started to release hostages slowly. And this could be in a way to show that, yes, they will work with Israel. But according to some experts, being that this was an American mother and daughter, that's one of the reasons why they released them. The other one, 2 elderly Israeli women, they could have actually been, it could have been more work for them to keep them as a hostage because of their advanced age. And so instead, they released them. Okay? Now, I want to show you this. Okay, I want to show you this really quick. I think this is very important because here's what was happening. This is from the Israel Defense Forces. This is from their actual Twitter account. It says, there is no ceasefire. There are tactical local pauses for humanitarian aid for Gazan civilians. These tactical pauses are limited in time and area. We are also providing humanitarian corridors for civilians in Gaza to temporarily move south to safer areas where they can receive, probably shouldn't have clicked that, anyway, where they could receive humanitarian aid. Our war is with Hamas and not with the people of Gaza. Okay? And you can see from that video that these people are being released. Okay? They're able to go. Look at all those people. That's what we've been waiting for. Okay? That's what President Biden asked for. Is this rolling pause. Let civilians get out. Temporarily move to the southern border to safer areas. And it's happening. So, that is what's going on right now. But again, I bring all this up because the United States now is in this. And it may not be an actual war. It may not be, we're getting close. But it may not be that the United States is putting troops on the ground. But here's where experts say the United States is in this. Because now we're sending additional funding. The additional funding, the $14.3 billion, is now pretty much holding up other bills here in the United States. One of the biggest ones is the government funding bill. Right now, we got 8 days. After November 17th, the United States government would have to be shut down because we do not have any additional funding that has been approved. So, if you think that this war in Israel is not really impacting the people of the United States, it is. This is going to impact us for many years. Some say if we do see a shutdown, this could be the longest shutdown ever. So it would be more than 34 days, which happened under the former President Donald Trump when he was fighting for the border wall funding. So as we get more information, I promise I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates, but that is what we know as of right now. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.